welcome to On a Very Serious Note, where we ditch the BS and get real. I'm your host, Patrick, and we're diving deep into life's roller coaster. Career highs, messy relationships, wanderlust-inducing travels, and social issues that matter. Expect raw and filtered conversations and a whole lot of laughs. This ain't your average podcast, so buckle up and get ready to be challenged and entertained. Kaya tara na, usap tayo. Ladies, are you tired of feeling like your body is working against you? The mood swings, the bloating, the brain fog? It's enough to make you want to scream, "Day off, please." Well, I'm here to tell you it's time to take back your control. Welcome to On a Very Serious Note, where in this very special episode, we tackle the real health issues women face nowadays. Today, we're diving deep into how functional medicine can supercharge your health. We're taking balancing those pesky hormones, boosting your gut vibes, and giving your mental mojo a serious upgrade. And who better to guide us in this journey? A Filipino functional medicine rockstar. Welcome to the show, Dr. Zui.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for gracing your time and sharing your wisdom and your expertise about a very important topic. A lot of my friends have actually requested and have asked about having a special episode about women's health, particularly hormone imbalances, gut health, and overall wellness among our Filipino sisters out there. And I'm very, very excited because this is very timely. I know we could really share very important information at this very special episode. But before we dive deep into this very important topic, can you please share about your background, your professional background, where you're from, and your where you're coming from this passion that you're doing right now?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's essentially my origin story, I am originally from Laguna. I live here now in Cebu City. For a while, I was living in BGC, and it's in that place that I eventually chanced upon functional medicine. But I'm getting ahead of my story. My specialty really is occupational medicine. That's health and safety in the workplace. And I got there because of a series of events that led me there. I was looking at health and safety in the workplace. Eventually, it led me to television. So, Survivor Series, I was a doctor behind that. I eventually had a Hollywood mentor, so I was helping out in that aspect. I did entertainment, commercials. So, for when they need somebody for stunts, when there's going to be stunts, that's where I come in because I try to, monitor their safety, but also their health. And because I'm exposed to high intensity action, going out in the outdoors, it's developed that passion for the outdoors, lifestyle, food. Like you're in a remote island, what are you gonna eat? So all of these things, I developed that passion for lifestyle and taking care of myself beyond just the usual medications. And it somehow led me to functional medicine, which is a more holistic view of medicine. So it's not a different kind of medicine. It's just like the conventional medicine practice is highly specialized. So it's like a worm's eye view. But a functional medicine doctor eventually becomes a general practitioner, a super generalist, in fact, because you're seeing it from a bird's eye view. And so now the kind of symptoms, the kind of conditions that you have that you discuss with your specialist, a functional medicine doctor tries to connect all those dots, gives you a better picture, gives you another layer of understanding of what's going on with you. And so that now, even if you're seeing a specialist, you have a super generalist helping you figure out the root causes of everything and making sure that lifestyle is on check and that you're healing yourself in that sense. So that was how I got into functional medicine. But personally, my story of how I got into women's health was because 8 years ago, when I was learning functional medicine, I just suddenly noticed a change in my menstrual period. Before, it was clockwork, but now it was clockwork, but almost gone. And I know that my OB wanted me to start on pills. And I was like, wait, I'm studying functional medicine. I can do something about it. And there were some improvements, but not until 2 years later when I suddenly like broke the code for myself, looking into the gut, addressing it from that level. The following month, I had my period. So it just solidified that this is something that I want to do because I'm coming from a place of I know what it's like to have these hormonal issues. And from then, I think the universe just sent me a lot of women. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's very inspiring story. No, I think it started with a map in progress and it became something like a roadmap towards an advocacy, not just
Yeah.
by practicing it, but of course by promoting women's health. And now you're making it full time to be able to help others as well. I like that you also mentioned that you even experienced it personally. That's
Yeah.
why that's why you wanted to do this and share this
Hmm.
passion outside of just performing the or practicing the profession. It's really
Yeah.
a dedication or a lifetime dedication, it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it is.
Amazing.
I think it's like one of my mentors from the US, Dr. Perry, she said before that when the student is ready, the teacher will come. So I think I was the student and I was being primed for that. When I was ready, the teacher came, and the teachers were all of these patients who had all of these hormonal issues, and they just kept coming. All the teachers kept coming.
Got it. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
a lot of my friends, I've
Mhm.
been hearing about hormonal imbalances and issues
Yeah.
from my friends, my women friends in my circle. And I kind of like as a man, as a someone who doesn't even have background or doesn't know how these works with women, I started searching and thought of what could be the underlying issues and what are the effects, overall effects of these issues women now face nowadays. And that's what we're going to talk about with your expertise, of course, but Dr. Zoe. But yeah, to begin with, we're so excited to have you here, of course. Thank you for sharing your background, but let's get real about hormones. They're like little divas in our bodies, right? Even men does have hormones. It's just so
Yeah.
different with women, right?
Yeah.
These little things always demands huge attention. It sounds to me like because my friends kind of like, oh, I have this hormonal imbalance right now. I don't feel like going out. I don't feel like with my body. They always have that complaint. And when they're out of whack, it's not pretty in general. It's just so uncomfortable, right? So give us the lowdown. What's the deal with the hormones? What's normal? What's not? And most importantly, how can we get those little divas back in line using functional
Mhm.
medicine?
Yeah. So when we talk about hormones, these are the messages that are being sent out by your cells. So cells talk all the time and they use hormones, they use neurotransmitters. So that's another group of messages. Um, you already highlighted the difference between, or you already mentioned the difference between men and women. So women have the fluctuation of these hormones. So all of us, all human beings, we have circadian rhythms, right? But women have another rhythm called the infradian rhythm, which is a kind of rhythm that's stretched out more than 24 hours. It's stretched out for 28 days at least. So that's the menstrual cycle. So if you can imagine the kind of hormonal fluctuation that you have during the day, stretch it out for 1 month. That's what women have. So in different phases of these cycles, women have different superpowers and different weaknesses. But I'd like to look at it on the positive side. Each of them is a superpower. Okay. So first of all, because of these fluctuations, women are different. There are times that she's very magnetic, the Riz is on. But then there are times when you are more introspective and you're nesting. So maybe some of those fluctuations that you're feeling is just an expected fluctuation because of your cycle. But then if we're going into how can it be problematic, then you develop it's very much felt. You develop you sense that there's something wrong in that maybe your menstrual cycle is not normal. And by the way, in 2015, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists consider the menstrual cycle as a sort of vital sign already, so that it's very vital for women to track their hormones to get a better understanding if they are in that expected range, right? But if there's something wonky about your hormones, you will see it in your cycle. Maybe it's very heavy, maybe it's very scanty, maybe it's very frequent, maybe it's irregular. So you find something wrong there. Now, what functional medicine does is it looks beyond just the hormones, beyond just the ovary and the uterus, because, like I said, all of our cells are talking to each other. And what's the probability that those cells have talked to the thyroid, have talked to the gut, have talked to anywhere else? So functional medicine will look into that, trying to understand the unique story that you have, the unique contributors to what you have. So you may be seeing your OB and being treated for a certain hormonal problem, but if you're going to look beyond that, then that can help what you're doing with your OB. And in fact, that's what happened to me. Even in the beginning of my practice, it just took one OB who believed in me and sent me her patients. So we were working together so that her patients will have a better chance of conceiving. So that's how functional medicine works with the current conventional practice that we have.
Got it. So it looks to me that this particular practice it's like the solution of the to figure out the underlying causes on top of the just the symptoms. Kasi marami siguro like I've heard from my friends that maybe it's just irregular periods. They're not following their cycle like the usual, but there could be some problems behind that relates to hormones, much more serious, or in a wider spectrum of just looking the superficial of what they're feeling, right? Sometimes this can be ignored kasi I don't think in our society in the Philippines, it's a normal thing for a Filipina to, it's not a tradition, it's not a norm. That's what I'm trying to say. Hindi siya hindi ganun ka, parang, I'm not saying may stigma, but parang hindi naman lahat ng mga babae hindi ganun ka-open to communicate na isa ba yun sa magiging maging tinitingnan ng functional medicine itself, kung bakit maraming hiccups in between, promoting overall wellness and health with women?
Yeah, alam mo, it's not just Filipinas. It's overall. Okay? Kasi we've grown up with this, it's sort of a taboo, di ba, to talk about our period. We whisper na, meron ako ngayon.
Oo, yung ganun na yung norms before na kapag sinabi mo yan, it kind of like, it sounded like it's dirty, it doesn't...
Exactly.
Yeah, parang ganun yung, di ba? It's until now may mga ganun pa rin. Although, yung practices like the functional medicine and the like a lot of programs right now in our society are opening up like advocacies to be open, to be vocal about their periods, and to act normal with their periods.
Yeah, we're trying to normalize it. It is actually maybe some of you listening right now would not agree with me, but the menstrual cycle is actually a beautiful thing if you understand it. Yun naman ang problem if we don't understand anything, di ba? We tend to have a negative connotation about something. But when we try to understand we get to appreciate what it is, and then we can partner with it and have better chances at health. Okay, so what you were talking about, the connections, what you were talking about previously was connections, and what got into my mind was, okay, I'm going to fast forward and talk about the most common hormonal issue plaguing women globally, which is PCOS. Pero because Filipino tayo, we say it's PCOS. Okay, so it's the same. It's the most common hormonal issue globally. There would be a variety of literatures coming out. Some would say between 8 to 12%, 13 to 15%, 15%, and there are even some experts in their opinion who would say it's probably even 20%. It's that common. And even in the Philippines, it's very common. And the problem is it's undiagnosed. Because number one, we tend to think na it's all part of our hormones. Kasi nga that's where the misunderstanding or maybe the lack of information comes from. Even me, like, the kind of information that we had growing up about our menstrual cycle, hindi pa ganun karami eh. Now we're learning a lot more. So if there is that PCOS, for instance, remember I said, and I will re-emphasize, that cells are talking to each other all the time. And so you now have these connections. It's not going to be a wonder that if you have PCOS, you're going to have a cardiometabolic problem. That means diabetes, hypertension, a heart issue, right? You
Okay.
may have a thyroid issue. So all of them really magkakabarkada yan. So it's really important for us to understand what our hormones are, what they do, and if there is something wrong, to seek help.
Got it. Wow, that's very insightful, Doc. Thank you for clarifying and for giving this information right now. Ito siguro yung pinaka-common kasi I also have one friend that has PCOS issues for years. I think she had it for years already. And she was asking about this. Is this something genetic or is this something can be acquired from the food they take or they eat?
A little of genetics, but a lot more of lifestyle. Okay? So when we talk about genetics, kasi minana mo yun eh. If you look at the family history, if you have a family history of like diabetes, hypertension, maybe thyroid issues, and any other hormonal issues, likely that's setting you up for development of PCOS. Likely. I say likely because it takes also the role of the environment, the role of lifestyle to influence those genes. So this is what we call, I'm going to drop this word, it's called epigenetics. It's the influence of the external factors on the gene that will tell the gene to turn on or to turn off. And in that sense, even though you may have that genetic predisposition to something, you can actually make changes about it. So the highlight now here is, what are you doing when it comes to lifestyle? What are you doing in understanding the other factors that can contribute to this hormonal imbalance? So there, not just genetics, but a combination of it.
Got it. Now, it's very clear that it's not just something we can inherit from the bloodlines,
Yeah.
from the generational bloodlines, but it's also something has to do more with the kind of lifestyle that we have or our women have. And I think this also notes to start exploring lifestyle changes, so we can support overall hormonal health, right?
Yeah.
And that includes considering and taking part or introducing functional medicine into your life, into your spectrum of medication, or like, your frequent consultation. Maybe it's about time if you feel like it's been years already and you have this irregular periods and you have this not very normal periods that are visiting you, sometimes not, sometimes takes a lot of time. Maybe something to consider if you're listening right now, if you have doubts, to go and have yourself check and, start that process. It's not an easy process, I think, but by starting and by showing up and introducing into your, holistic overall health routine, functional medicine, that would actually, I think, prevent a lot of things more
Mm.
serious in the future.
Yeah. So because the emphasis of functional medicine is root cause analysis.
Root cause analysis. Wow.
So the typical patients that we see are patients who have seen a lot of doctors, you know, and they want to deep dive and better understand what else is going on. What are the connections there? So that's when they see us. Now, I've seen a change already in the years that I've been practicing functional medicine. Before, nung hindi pa kami masyadong kilala, so wala kami masyadong pasyente, and even the patients who come in, they really don't know what to expect. Right now, we're so surprised that people know about it and they come prepared. They know that they have to do the work. They know that they're the ones who will eat the food that we say. They're the ones who have to move or have to sleep early. So the typical patient is the kind of patient who would want to deep dive, better understand what's going on. They're seeing maybe multiple doctors already, taking multiple medications. But then there are also those who would not, yung parang hindi na nila hihintayin to have these multiple doctors, multiple diseases, and multiple drugs. They are just very proactive and they want to just get into the nitty-gritty and see a functional medicine doctor because they want to understand a little more about what's going on.
There you go. So for those who are listening right now, be proactive. It's not a scary thing to do. It
Yeah,
sounds to me like this is more a preventive action rather than, a cure, 'di ba?
for
Kasi
sure.
this is the first step to understanding why, like, to understand your body in general. Sometimes we
Yeah,
don't understand our body kasi we just wake up one day rather, and then we just feel sometimes uncomfortable or
yeah.
wacky. So if you feel like you've been carrying this for years and long time right now, and you're listening this is really the sign for you to be proactive. We have a lot of experts out there like Dr. Zoe here. Functional medicine, although it's modern, although it's just being introduced, recently through social media, but we want to
Mm.
push the boundary forward. We want to open and break barriers and have this allow this opportunity to be an avenue to promote overall health, especially with hormonal imbalance and issues. Thank you so much for
Mm.
that, Doc. Now, this time, I wanted to talk about guts. Hindi yung guts
Sure.
ng lakas ng loob.
Yeah.
I know we have that, but I mean our actual gut, right? The one
Yeah.
with billions of bacteria. Turns
Mm.
out it's not just for digestion. It's practically how do you call this? Like it's practically a second brain. Like
Mm.
when
Yeah,
it's generally unhappy, the rest of our body ain't too happy either. It sounds to
for
me like
sure.
that. So tell us,
Yeah.
what are the signs our gut needs a little bit of attention?
Okay. There are a lot of signs, but I would say even if there are no obvious signs, we still have to look at the gut. That's really the first step. And in fact, there's a thing going on with functional medicine. If you don't know what to do, you just start with the gut, and then everything else will follow. And actually, I really find that to be applicable in so many of these patients. So symptoms like constipation or maybe unexplained abdominal pain or maybe bloating is one of the most common that I find in patients. So the thing about the gut is that it is connected to everything, right? Just and what you said, there is a gut brain connection because it's a second brain. So for years, for centuries even, we've been thinking that it's the mind that has control over the gut. But now we're learning it's reciprocal. So there's a bidirectional communication between the gut and the brain. And if we think about it, there is a bidirectional communication. So whatever is happening in the gut, it will get transmitted to the brain and it will affect your brain. Similarly, our gut is connected to our hormones. And I'll give you two examples how it's connected to estrogen. Let's go with estrogen. There are millions, I think trillions pa nga of microbes there. You mentioned it already. So the population of those bugs is called the microbiome. And the microbiome is all over our body, but we're talking about the gut microbiome here. So the gut microbiome, it has a role in producing those neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which make you happy. And so in a way, it also has a relationship with our hormones. If you have this healthy population of microbiome, that will also affect how you are detoxifying your estrogen. So that's one example of that. So in other words, if you don't have that healthy microbiome, it will affect how you are detoxifying. Instead of throwing that estrogen away, it gets recirculated back. And if you have PCOS, that means it's estrogen dominance, tas nag-recirculate ka pa, lalong nakadagdag siya dun sa hormonal imbalance mo. So the gut is very vital in that sense. Kaya kahit na wala pang symptoms, or maybe like there are some sporadic symptoms that are showing up, the first step will always be the gut.
Got it. Wow. Grabe, no? Kasi parang naririnig lang natin na it's the home of the bacteria, but you know, marami pa palang pwedeng mangyari kung hindi din okay yung gut natin.
For
But
sure,
in
yes.
general, Doc, what are the common or specific tests that we can, like me personally, if I would like to know, what type of test do I need to go through to assess my gut health?
Pag gut. Okay. Meron na tayong mga advanced test. Okay? Let me describe that first. There are comprehensive stool exams right now. The kind of test that we have in the hospitals is just one page. Minsan nga half a page lang yung stool exam. But the kind of test that we can have now, it can be like 12 to 24 pages. And this is sent out to the US. Hindi pa available sa atin here but hopefully in the future, kaya na natin yon. We send it out to the US. And the results that come back to us, it gives us an idea about the kind of microbiome that we have. It tells us a little something about how we're digesting because it's important, yung digestion. We just don't overlook that. Tapos we get to see if there is an infection going on, makikita na natin what kind of medication or maybe botanical na gamot ang pwede natin gamitin so that we don't have to guess. So in that sense, when we understand what's going on inside of the gut, then we are targeting our plans. Now, this is a developing test. So we may think na ang galing-galing nito, we can do so many right now, but maybe when we learn more as we go along, baka mas ang tawag doon, parang mas targeted pa, mas sakto pa. Pero this is what we have right now and it can be helpful already for us. So yun yung available test. Now, commonly, because it's an expensive test, there are people, of course, who would not be able to do that. And I understand. I'd much rather na ibuhos na lang natin yung plans natin doon sa food mo, maybe some supplements, maybe some medications if applicable. So if we are not able to do that advanced test, there are other tests that we can do and use the tests that are available in the hospitals. Maybe we take a look at your liver, take a look at your kidney, take a look at protein maybe, take a look at your stool test. So we still get to utilize the available test in the local setting.
Well, that's a relief, at least for someone who can't really afford and who can't that does not have the advantage or privilege to send their tests in the US. For that very, very particular test, there are other ways as well. Like you mentioned.
Yeah, and
yep, go ahead.
I forgot kasi pwede din questionnaires eh. Questionnaires are not the same as test. Pero
parang survey, ganun.
Parang survey. Parang, do you have this symptom? Can you grade it from 1 to 5? So, it 1 to 4 or maybe 3 to 6, ganyan. So, it gives us an idea saan ba talaga yung problem. So, it's it's just a gauge. Hindi siya as definite as a test, but at least it gives us something.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. At
Mm-mm.
least on an economical approach that
Exactly.
gives that gives a lot of hope to our sisters and brothers out
Mhm.
there who have got problems and wanted to, introduce this approach or medicine approach to their lives. Now,
Yeah.
we've also mentioned earlier that there's a way to introduce botanical
Mm.
medicines or
Yeah.
supplements in our body to leverage our gut health. Or can you give us an example of what specific herbs or
Mm.
botanical or traditional medicine or alternative medicine that we could be probably most of us could be familiar with?
Okay. I would start with I would still prefer or I would still recommend that even if I tell you what these botanicals are, that you still have to consult with a
Yeah,
doctor
of course.
because, it still has to be monitored. There are side effects. So I think one of the most popular is berberine. Even patients who see me for the first time, they've heard of berberine. And even some doctors who would see me as a colleague because of, let's say, diabetes or something, they've heard of berberine. And this one is working as an antifungal, but antifungal siya. So that is it can help lower yung insulin resistance that we see in PCOS. And we also see that in diabetes. Okay, so that's one. Another could be coconut oil. So caprylic acid and coconut oil, it is a natural antifungal. Others would be grapefruit seed extract. Medyo scary lang siya because it's really very aggressive, pero also in the sense na yung side effect. But also, ang galing naman ng results. And then there's oregano, which is also a little more aggressive. So I'm saying this because these are some of the more available botanicals that we can use. But again, better if it is guided by a doctor because there are side effects. And there are ways naman to lessen it. But yeah, you have to go see a doctor for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, for our listeners out there, Doc Zoe mentioned several herbs and botanical alternative medicine that I could really say that at least they're all available here in our country. We don't even have to fly somewhere to get them,
Mm-hmm.
thanks to our resources. But at least see a doctor first before getting the right alternative medicine or the botanical supplements that you can take
Mm-mm.
to start, supplying your nutrients at least.
Yes.
Now, thank you for that, Doc. That's very, very, very insightful. Now, let's shift gears and talk about our mood and mind. I think overall, from the hormonal issues and now gut health, it gives me a clear parang vision na all of these things pala, pag hindi okay itong dalawang to, it
Mm-hmm.
will affect generally our mood and
Mm.
our mind in
Yeah.
general. Because let's face it, sometimes life in the Philippines can be very stressful then.
Yeah.
And our mental health can take a hit.
Yeah.
Sobra yan. Maraming mga karelate niyan. But did you know that, I think most of our listeners doesn't even know that what we eat and how we live can actually affect our mood. It's a cliche, but we want
Yeah.
to emphasize that here in this episode because this is where functional medicine is coming in. Now, Doc, can you help us
Mhm.
understand how your practice improve our mental health and combat issues like anxiety and depression?
Yeah, alam mo, I'll tell you a little story first. When I was in third year med school, and we were going to study psychiatry, we had this manual. And in the first page of the manual, there was this schematic diagram of how, and it will help us to diagnose psychiatric disorders. And ang sabi sa amin, for on the first day, you have to understand this schematic diagram in order for you to diagnose, and it will help you through your exams. And honestly, it did. But one of the things that was highlighted there on that first day, on that diagram, sabi nila, before you diagnose anything down here, you have to consider something organic. Meaning, you have to consider the medical conditions that the patient has. You don't just jump into bipolar or personality disorder or schizophrenia, you have to consider also what's going on in the body. And I never forgot that because it was emphasized. And now that I'm practicing a more holistic approach and I'm seeing all these interconnections, now I understand that yes, do not take for granted what's going on elsewhere in the body that can contribute to mental health. So, like as an example, if you have a thyroid issue, it may affect your mental health. If you have deficiencies in vitamin D and vitamin B, it will affect your mental health. If you do not have enough of the healthy fat, it will also affect that because remember, our brains, our nerves are made of fat. So if you don't have that healthy amount of fat, it's going to help affect your mental health. Now, having these in mind, and these are just a few examples pa lang, right? Having these in mind, now you get to think, okay, real food, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds. If you're eating animals, then that source of protein. All of these have benefits for you that we just take for granted because it's just easier to buy cup noodles, you know? So all of them have a contribution to your body. And that's why we want to emphasize that each food item is medicine for you. So that's what we emphasize first, food first when it comes to whatever plans that we have. And then we have to emphasize also that let's take a look at the connections of all of the other health concerns that the patient might have because we might have to address that first and the mental health will follow.
Oh, I see. So, well, to narrow it down, I mean, what you emphasized there was, it's very important for many of us to also consider the food we eat because
Mm,
it will eventually be either improving or affecting our mental health
yes.
and could lead to, if we're looking at the negative side, to lead to anxiety and depression,
Mm,
right? And
yeah.
this also highlights the only things about mental issue or mental health issues like anxiety and depression as something emotional, but rather it's more of physical, right? It comes from the physical factor to begin with. And
Mhm.
then later it could be translated to stressors. There could be stress. And this now goes back to our physical overall health,
Mm,
right?
yes. So I'd like to think of it as like the physical is there as a foundation because
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
also don't want to, um, a lot of their issues are valid naman eh. A lot of what they went through was valid. But if your foundation is not strong, you don't have good nutrition, you have a toxic lifestyle, then whatever issues that you have that's going on in your life right now, it will just make that worse. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's both the issues that you're dealing with plus the kind of health that you have.
Mhm. So parang trigger yun, trigger point yun, yung
Mm,
mga bagay na yun na na-mention natin kanila, like food, lifestyle, and all that, to a more problematic,
yeah.
result or outcome that we might
Yeah.
face in our body. Knock on the wood. We want to pray for all of us here that we're healthy and of course we are functioning normal, but of course we can't really control, right? Especially with the
Yeah.
kind of lifestyle that we have right now. We are on a
Mm-mm.
digital age.
Yeah.
The pace of life is fast, so we can
Yeah.
just go to the convenience store and grab something without even having to think of the nutrition we get from the food we
Mm-mm.
take. Little by little, as this compiles to becoming frequent, it becomes something, you know,
Normal.
normal. Then when it becomes
Yeah.
normal, your body craves for it, and then you start, normalizing to take these things. And no, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. While I'm saying this, Doc, I'm now guilty. Ganun din ako eh. Kasi
Oo.
sometimes, di ba, malakas tayo. We feel like we're still healthy right now. We feel like
Mm-mm.
we don't even feel nothing. We're okay. But andun pala inside, our gut is having war na pala or conflict. And then it affects the brain and eventually it will show up. So
Yeah.
what particular age does these complications come out, doc?
It can come out
Based on your
anytime.
anytime.
Anytime. Yeah. There are just, even teenagers eh.
Oh,
Actually,
really?
ang ano na nga eh, what I'm reading from experts right now is that they're having problems right now kasi little girls, they start to have their menstruation earlier than expected. And that doesn't that's concerning for them kasi what are those factors that will contribute to that? There are conversations about the kind of toxicity that we've been exposed to or the kind of lifestyle, the kind of food that we have. So, kumbaga parang it just can happen at any time. A lot of what's happening to you. Okay, let's go back again to PCOS. That one takes years to develop. It just didn't happen overnight. You have to look back like 10 to 15 years because that's how long it took to develop. So even
Mm.
right now, as we're talking, I don't know, am I developing something that I don't know? So when we do conventional investigation, we do all of these tests. We're looking for something solid, something that we can see. But it doesn't mean that nothing is going on in the cellular level. So fortunately, in this age, the kind of test that we do, we can look at the cellular and even the subcellular level in order for us to catch it early. Kaya,
Wow.
kaya kahit na wala pang obvious, alam mo those kind of people, I think a lot of you will relate to this. Yung, there's something wrong with me. I don't know. There's something weird. And then nagpatingin ka sa doctor, gumawa sila ng test, and the doctor will say, it's normal. Okay? But there's something wrong. Okay? Hindi naman mali yung doctor. Kasi ang lumabas naman talaga sa test, normal. So baka hindi yun yung test na kinakailangan mong tingnan. Or maybe, kahit na hindi ka gumawa ng advanced test na yon, baka you can do a little something already. Like change how you eat. Maybe change the time that you eat. Or maybe add a little more sleep. Yun. Kasi nga, it's probably just developing there and you can stop it at any time too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very scary, no? Na even,
Sorry.
kasi we're not scaring anyone here, but that's reality,
Yeah.
of course. But
Yeah.
what Doc I think is trying to say here is that these are realities happening. We've even heard it from the news. We've even heard it from the paper. We've read it somewhere that this particular normal person doesn't even felt anything until something has been discovered when she got into an advanced kind of test or assessment. So I think it's very important for not just women, but for everyone who's listening right now to really, listen to their body. I think that's what I'm getting right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you feel like there's something wrong, lean towards there is really something going on. We're not
There might
hoping
be.
that these are wrong things, but there is really
Yeah.
something that your body is telling you. And this vessel right here, this body is so magnificent that even science sounds like it's just very systematic, but in layman's term, people call it miracle that our bodies can communicate like a
Mm.
human being or like someone you can really talk to. I
Mm-mm.
think is very real. It's realistic. It's a fact that our body communicates to us from our
Yeah.
hearts, our minds, and these things these things that we hear from our body are opportunities for us to listen to them and take action.
Yeah.
Kasi if you ignore them, it's going to be more bigger problems, 'di ba? Hopefully
Mm.
not, but yeah, that's very common na kaya pala ito yung nararamdaman ko. Sana nakinig na lang ako. Sana nung na-feel ko to nung ganitong mga taon, sana napa-check up ko na siya, na prevent ko pa or yung mga ganung mga pero it is what it is. Sometimes it could be factors of financial privilege or opportunities. The reason why, kasi sometimes yung mga test na mga gano'n, hindi naman talaga available or accessible sa mga
Usual,
kababayan
di ba?
natin o
Yeah.
especially sa
Oo.
healthcare system natin dito. Pero I'm sending this we are sending this as a message, a strong message to anyone out there that if there are opportunities, marami naman available specialists or generalists in the government hospitals that could probably help us, direct us to the right person. But at least
Mm-mm.
start or take that first step in
Yeah.
introducing the medical approach, the scientific approach, especially if there is something going on, if you feel like there is really something wrong with my body and I'm not comfortable with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Alam mo what came to mind now is like, let's simplify things, you know? Story about evolution of man. 'Di ba we're beings of nature, right? We years ago, thousands of years ago, we were hunters, gatherers, right? We go out and try to hunt so that we have something to eat. We go out, forage some fruits, forage some things so that we can eat. We get up when the sun is up and we sleep when it's dark. Kasi walang artificial light, walang time zone, wala tayong fina-follow na Australian time zone or US time zone. We sleep when it gets dark. And so that was how we evolved, right? That was how we evolved. And the kind of stress that we have is baka mamaya there's a dangerous beast somewhere there that we have to defend ourselves. Those are real dangers nung time na yon. Now fast forward to the present, wala tayong ganong klaseng danger. And then we don't sleep on time kasi there's artificial light. We work different time zones. And then andyan lang, convenient store, convenient food. We just eat it. So kumbaga, lahat nung evolution na nangyari in the past that has made us who we are right now, parang we're working against it. We're working against that nature. And when your body is not feeling well, even if you don't understand what's going on, that's your body's way of telling you or giving you feedback na, you have to do something about it. And what I find kasi with a lot of, especially when it comes to hormonal issues ng babae, what I find is that it is your body's way of telling you na, please, let's go back to what's natural. And I know that it's not like, I know that it's not possible for some women na kunwari, they have to stop the graveyard shift. But then there are other things that you can do to get back to that normal way of being. Like eating healthy, eating real food, not processed food, eating as much real food as you can so that you get as much of the nutrients that you need, right? Or maybe giving yourself time to reflect, having a spiritual practice, or maybe movement. It doesn't have to be a vigorous workout. I mean, you and me, Patrick, we met in the yoga class.
Yeah.
So, diba? So parang it's our body's way of telling us, go back to what nature intended you to be. Eat the kind of food that your body knows. The kind of processed food that we have, ilang taon lang yan? 100 years? Maybe even less? Hindi yan kilala masyado ng katawan natin. So, listen to your body. Tama ka dun.
Nice. Thank you for that very inspiring and encouraging message for our women. Now, Doc, before we wrap up, what is your final message? What can you advise to someone like a fellow women right now is listening that is interested or curious about introducing these types of medicine, conventional medicine, but is very hesitant or in doubt or scared to know what's really happening in their bodies right now?
Well, syempre the best would be to talk to a doctor that you're comfortable with. Okay? Kasi hindi naman lahat ng patients bagay sa a particular doctor and vice versa. So find a doctor that you're comfortable with. That's the first. If you feel like you're not ready yet and you still want to do the work on yourself, of course, that's also good. You can do your own research. You can be guided by somebody else, like say a nutritionist or a health coach. That's still fine. The important thing is to take that first step. And the important thing too is to understand what's really going on in your body. Because just like at work, kapag kasundo mo yung katrabaho mo, you get better results, diba? So if you partner with your body, then you get better results. Then you get better health. And if at some point during this whole journey, you feel like you need help, then I really would encourage you to seek help. Okay? Start with food, start with sleep, how you move. I would say manage stress, but actually, ang mas important is building that bodily resilience to stress. Kasi stress will always be there. Eh. Pero dapat your body can understand that you're able to rest. And then have that mental, emotional, and spiritual side of you get stronger. If that means forging that relationship with your family, with your friends, getting into that spiritual practice with your faith, um, giving yourself that time to disconnect and reflect, those are all very powerful means for you to get back to what nature intended and to get back your health.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Zoe, for that very inspiring and encouraging insight you've shared here in this platform. I know it will really reach to the people that needed to hear this. And of course, that will be very informational or informative for all of us here. And now we understand fully how important functional medicine is and where can we go to find a little help. I think the key takeaway here is we have the power and the full control of taking charge of our own health, which is very doable for most of us, right? We just really need to go out there, make that first step, look for the experts in professional health, like our functional medicine doctor here, Dr. Zoe. These are all the steps that we needed for now, but it will really, really, really be fruitful in our lives. Thank you so much, Dr. Zoe, for sharing your expertise with us today. Your insights are truly empowering for all of us here and, of course, our Filipina sisters out there. Dr. Zoe, please invite our listeners. How can they reach out or follow you on social media, or where can they, visit you in your clinic?
You can see me on Instagram. I'm more on Instagram than anywhere else. It's at Dr. Zoe Arugay. That's dr.zoearugay. And then I see patients online mostly. So even if I'm affiliated with a center in BGC in Manila, I am based in Cebu. So I can see you online as well. If I see you in person, that will be in Cebu. That's going to be arranged because, like I said, mostly online. And yeah, so see what I post on Instagram. I mostly post stories, but I'm there.
Maraming salamat to our amazing guest, Dr. Zoe Arugay. And to you, our awesome listeners, if you like this episode, if you feel like someone needed to hear this, share this one to your friends and family. And of course, if you have questions, you can comment on our Spotify and Apple Podcast platforms and follow us on a very serious note. Until our next episode, goodbye for now, and may we all be healthy and we continue to be unfiltered. Thanks for tuning in on a Very Serious Note. If you love this episode, hit that follow button, share it with your friends, and join us next week for another powerful conversation. Stay curious, stay bold, and always end on a serious note. Until next time!